Now, where did you do this vision therapy? What kind of
I did.
doctor, what place would...
Yeah, yeah. So she's a board certified ophthalmologist, and she has a specialty in binocular vision therapy. I can look up, we can send it later, of what the ophthalmological certification is. But if you say, binocular vision therapy, and then one of the greatest resources I found was the Brain Injury Alliance Association of the state of Washington. And I think all of the states in the United States have a Brain Injury Alliance
Okay.
nonprofit that can give you referrals of local practitioners who do this kind of work.
Okay.
So in the Seattle area, I had one up north, one downtown, one down south. The further south of Seattle you get, there's some amazing practitioners because we have the Lewis McChord military base.
No, that's cool. We'll get that out there so we
Yep,
can look,
yep,
because people,
yep,
whether you're in New Jersey,
yep,
Seattle,
exactly.
Wyoming or
Yep,
whatever it may be. So,
exactly. Yep,
yeah,
great resources out there.
yeah.
So,
And is
yeah,
this the Bates method? Are we
it
talking
is.
about the
Yes,
Bates
yeah,
method? Am
the
I
William
jumping? I'm
Bates
stealing
method.
your
Yep,
thunder a little bit.
I
Is
know,
that what we're
right there.
talking?
You're
This is
going.
the Bates method.
The Bates method. Yes.
Welcome, everyone, to the Whole Truth Podcast with John Levine, brought to you by Dean's Natural Food Market with 4 locations in Shrewsbury, Ocean, Basking Ridge, and Chester, New Jersey. I am here today. My guest is Jenny Zenner. She's a Senior Director of Career Services at the University of Virginia, Darden School of Business. She lives in sunny Seattle, Washington with her family. And she's here to tell a story about how she overcame several major concussions. Jenny, we go back a long time.
We do.
How
It
are
would
you
have
doing?
been.
You look
It would.
great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So do you. So
Yeah.
do you. You've been keeping healthy. Yep. So
I do my best.
2003, we got introduced.
We did. Tried to start a
Yeah.
health club and
Yep.
didn't happen, but that's all good.
That's okay. We can find other ways to help people be healthy.
And we're doing it right now
Exactly.
with your concussion story.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was no fun, and had to explore a lot of different options on my own, and want to help other people who might be on this in the same situation be able to find some resources for themselves, to get better.
That's the idea. So let's go
Yep.
through the backstory. When you got your first concussion, how many did you get, and the whole Megillah.
Absolutely. Well, the very first one, I was 4 years old, playing on the monkey bars with my cousins. And in the 70s, they did not have wood chips underneath monkey bars. They had concrete. So dropped on my head, and that was a doozy. And you know, uneventful then for quite a few years. And then in 2010, my first concussion as an adult. I was actually, you wouldn't think in a yoga class that you could get a concussion, but I was in a teacher training, really poorly designed. Person supporting me was not strong enough to support me going for yoga practitioners from crow to handstand. So basically, I was trying to be in a handstand, and I got dropped on my head like a pogo stick.
No wood chips.
No wood chips, no.
Not in the
Nice,
yoga. Not in the
hard
yoga
wood floor.
studio.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even think we were over a yoga mat at the time for what
Oh boy.
I might have been over a thin yoga mat. That would have been the extent between what was between me and the wood floor. So,
Oof. Okay, so that was
yeah.
the second one. Okay,
Yep,
now.
yep. And then fast forward 5 years, sitting in my living room watching the Seahawks play the NFC Championship game. And the first half was really uneventful. So my kids started playing their own football game in the living room, and decided I was the end zone, and dived into my lap, and my head slammed against the wall like a bobblehead, and
Ooh.
just the whole room shook.
This was the Seahawks and the Panthers.
Was it the Packers?
Was this this is the
The
NFC Championship game?
championship game. Yeah, I'm trying to remember who they played. Um,
I think it was the
I know
Panthers. I
uh,
think.
okay.
And then they went to the Super Bowl and beat the Broncos, right?
Yes.
That
Yeah,
year?
that was the good year. Yeah.
Well, I have good news for you.
Yeah.
Okay, we always look at the positive. You could be a Jets fan like myself, and you be concussed your entire life. So how do you think I feel?
Yeah,
Um,
I am happy to be in a city with the Seahawks organization and the great people we
I'm not
have. But
making light of your situation. I'm
I
just
know
trying
you're
to
not.
tell you that it could be worse. You can be concussed your
I could,
entire existence by being. Thank you, New York Jets, for that. And
yeah.
I've passed that along to my kids. But yeah, so they ran you over, the kids. Boy, uh, so
And
you
it
hit
was
the
just like
wall.
yeah, I was sitting on an ottoman, so I just a little bit lower because they're used to jumping in my lap, right? And then
Yeah.
it was just the both of them, right? Hit me in the chest and just slammed my head back. So,
Oof.
and that one really affected me for a couple of years before I was able to kind of feel close to normal again. Um, and then just over a year ago, it was really scary. Ever since the 2015 concussion, I really found with the headaches and everything I had, even if I had one drink, I would end up with a headache. And so it just wasn't worth it. I drank very rarely. And last year before Thanksgiving, having an early celebration at the in-laws, and I remember having, over the course of the day, heavy appetizers, lots of food, so full stomach. And I remember three mimosas, which is, watered down with orange juice. And,
Right.
you would think I'm not doing shots, but I blacked out and it was really scary. And, I have to have it pieced together of how then later on I slipped. So apparently I drank more and then slipped and fell on some an unfinished basement on some concrete and got another concussion. So haven't drank in over a year, won't drink again, just because my brain and alcohol clearly do not mix the number of times it's been hit. So
Sure.
yeah,
Well, I know you did a lot of things
I did.
to combat this and to get yourself to where you are now, but we're gonna keep you away from concrete, monkey
Yeah,
bars,
right.
mimosas, and football.
Yeah.
Other than that, I know there's a backstory. I know we talked about it. And so what did you do? Give me the next process in the line. Did
Yeah.
you go to the
Yeah.
doctor? What did you do?
Yeah.
What's worked?
Yeah. So that one in after the yoga one, I was really, you get flooded with adrenaline, right? And so at first I didn't hurt. I was just really shocked. And so asking a person who just got a concussion how they're doing, they're they're not the best person to ask. you know, they just got hit in the head.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there shocked. And, so it wasn't until a couple days later when my neck really hurt. I had, a persistent headache that I went and saw my family doctor. She's like, yeah, this is probably a concussion. Something's going on with your neck. Went and had an x-ray. And from that one, it was just physical pain that I had. And so I treated the physical symptoms. So got physical therapy, and the physical therapist kept working with me, and we had made a lot of progress, but it was like my neck muscles just wouldn't release. It was like, it just didn't trust me to take care of my head.
Oh, wow.
And so she sent me to a cranial sacral massage therapy and some acupuncture too. She just said, we need to just get these muscles to stop firing around your neck, because they really just want to support your spine, and I can't do it with physical therapy. So that helped a lot over that time, but I was still getting headaches. And after so I had twins, the lovely tacklers of mine, and
Boys will be boys.
they will be.
Boys will be
And
boys.
I found after that, my husband started having some health issues. And so we're trying to figure out what was going on with him. And I actually I kind of read my way to health. And so it's just weird how I've kind of pieced together some of these things. So there was a book out by Michael Broad called The Science of Yoga, the Risks and the Rewards. And it talked about yoga injuries. I'm like, well, this is a book for me. And in it,
Wow.
he slightly alludes to how we make a lot of our neurotransmitters in our gut, actually. And that's how our body supplies our brain with many of the neurotransmitters that we need to be healthy. And so he talked about the second brain book. So I'm reading through all this stuff. And in the meantime, my husband's doctor had recommended tryptophan to help him sleep. And it was working. The doctor couldn't really understand why, but we're like, well, what's going on here? Because the tryptophan was working for him to feel less anxious and to get good sleep. And tryptophan is the building block for serotonin. It's what our bodies need. So when a lot of people talk about depression and anxiety, it's serotonin. And so people who need tryptophan, sometimes they are fructose intolerant. So you find that out if you're an infant. Next up, if you're lactose intolerant. We knew my husband was lactose intolerant. The next step is gluten intolerant. And maybe you have irritable bowel syndrome and you've got leaky gut. And so apparently I nagged my husband a little bit. I just thought, I suggested kindly, but his story might be different. And
there's always two sides to the story.
Always two sides. But for whatever it was, it was the fog of, toddler twins. So I can't be held accountable for, accurate recollection of that window of time. But he finally decided, maybe I'll give this gluten-free thing a try. And within 2 days, he was a changed man with his gastrointestinal issues and able to sleep through the night, wake up and feel rested, didn't have the morning fog, able to concentrate, not achy anymore. And so given that, we just decided for the family, let's try going gluten-free. And you're talking to a wheat farmer's daughter. I'm fourth generation wheat farmers in this country. So,
right.
I'm not, and going gluten-free isn't necessarily a thing for everybody, but for our family, it has been the thing. And I found that we got gluten out of the house, and then I would go out and I'd have a big bowl of pasta and I'd have a migraine for 3 days.
That's incredible. So the gluten, you took gluten out for your husband, but then you realized by taking gluten out of your diet that helped your headaches?
Night and day. I just oh, wow, I'm not having it. My massage therapist, her name is Ginger. I'm like, I'm not going to Ginger as often. What's going on here?
Really?
And then I started connecting the dots of the headaches.
If I gave you gluten right now, would you get a headache?
It can be kind of inconsistent. Like if I had enough, the number one thing for me is that it makes me anxious. So then I can't sleep very well, and then I wake up groggy.
So did you ever do like a test, where you just eliminate it and then you bring it back in and then you just kind of see how it? Or I guess you did do that.
I have, yeah. And so now there will be times when, so for instance, I went to my friend's wedding, and everyone around me is drinking alcohol, and I'm not going to drink alcohol, but I decided I was going to have a gluten hangover, and so I had this amazing strawberry shortcake cake, and sure enough, next day, I didn't sleep that well, had a headache the next day, so. Yeah, and my joints don't ache as much anymore. I mean, he took a lot of Advil and Aleve over the years that I think wasn't about my hurdling and triathlon running. It was about the inflammation in my joints from the food I was eating. I limit my dairy too. There are a lot of things that I thought that coffee was affecting me, and turns out it was the milk in the latte, not the caffeine. So,
well, what's great about stories like this, and this is why I love having people like you on the show. So, this is a scientific experiment, and this is evidence-based experiment. There's two experiments. Jenny Zenner figures out what works for Jenny Zenner, so no one can argue that. This is you know your body better than anyone, so you know if gluten works or if it doesn't work. So we're not here to say that gluten's good or gluten's bad.
No.
We're here to tell the story that you have figured out that gluten is not good for you.
Correct.
We're all we're similar, but we're all a little bit different. I'm allergic to penicillin. Would not go well for me.
Yeah.
So the beauty of this is that gluten does not work. So what else? What other type of treatments did you go through?
Yeah. So then, for the most part, for that first concussion from 2010, that did it, right? I was feeling better. I still had, still if I get stressed, it goes to my neck. But it was after that, the NFC Championship one, that I really had to dig in. And so one of the first things I did, and I've gone back through, I knew I had a lot of different things. But
you're making it sound like you were playing linebacker for the Seahawks.
Exactly.
Were you digging in? And were you playing in the third quarter?
I have to make it sound better than it was, just sitting in my living room.
I really had to dig in. It was 21-17. We were down to the Panthers, and here's Jenny Zenner She comes around the
Well,
corner.
and it was just like, that was the thing though. Like I was scared. I didn't know. I was so fatigued. And just to be able to show up, and I had hard time cognitive processing. I wasn't saying the right word necessarily all the time. And it was a struggle. I had a really stressful consulting engagement at the time, but one of my good friends, I was working with him as my manager, so he was able to be really understanding and accommodating. And I just sort of tried to go down this path. So after that one, I went in and actually went to urgent care because at that point in time, my primary care physician no longer had that person. My husband actually called my OBGYN because we love her, we know her so well, and she's like, I can't see your wife for a concussion, all right? And so first I went to urgent care to just make sure that nothing really wrong was happening, So they sent me home and said, yes, you have a concussion, and if things worsen, then you need to come back. And then I kept going back to my same people. So I went back, I did some physical therapy, I did my massage therapy, I did acupuncture, and but I still just wasn't getting better. And the main doctors I had were just like, well, sometimes you just have to give it time, or maybe you need to adjust to your new normal. And I really wasn't satisfied with that. Randomly, I was looking at the speakers coming through in Seattle. Town Hall is this venue that has people come through, and this was life-changing for me. So this man named Clark Elliott, he is a professor in Chicago, and he'd had a major concussion with a car accident and just struggled. I don't know how this person kept himself behind the wheel of driving and trying to keep his job. But he had this book out called The Ghost in My Brain. And he was coming to speak at Seattle. I couldn't get out for it, but I bought the book. And that was in June of 2015. So, nearly half a year after that concussion that I'd just been struggling and trying to make do. And in it, he talked about doing vision therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy to help with his recovery. And he talked about the headaches that he was having. And I thought, wow, there's maybe something to this. And, so mind you, I bought this book in June, and it wasn't then until August that I got into my eye doctor.
What was this what was this guy's name again?
It's Clark Elliott. I actually have my...
Is he a doctor?
No, he is not. He's a professor. I can't remember what his. So this is the book, and I can send out a list to your listeners of the books.
And he teaches vision therapy.
Yeah, so did vision therapy, and then also some cognitive therapy, brain games and stuff, and things like that. But really specific to what his injuries were.
I have a pencil.
Yes.
And the eraser's almost gone, but I need you to follow the eraser. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's test your vision therapy.
So
can you see this? Can you see this?
I can see it. I'm tracking.
Now, we're going to strengthen your eyes with vision therapy. Do you see this?
Well, the thing you would do is you would bring it toward your nose.
This is my test.
This is the John Levine test.
Yes, you follow. Do you see the eraser?
Oh, I'm watching it. Yep.
Strengthen the eyes. Okay, so now bring it towards my nose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep my eyes on it. Keep my eyes on it.
Keep your eyes on it. And then you look at what point in time your vision breaks is one of the exercises that they can do with that. So I went to my regular eye doctor, and they asked, like the dentist eye doctor, any changes in your health? And I said, well, I've had some concussions. And they didn't offer up any like, oh, hey, we should probably test for these other things. And so at the end of the exam, I said, well, I've had these concussions and I've read about this vision therapy stuff. Are you seeing anything? And she's like, oh, I don't really, in a regular exam, I wouldn't test for any of the stuff that would show up on that, but I'm happy to make a referral to someone. Some people have found some results from that. So I went in, and when I was doing the exam with this binocular vision therapist, Kathleen Kinney, amazing woman here in Seattle. So when she brought that,
I'm paying attention to you. I'm just practicing.
Yeah,
I'm just noticing that I've had a concussion too, by the way.
Yeah.
So not just being a Jets fan, I actually literally had one. I fell on concrete as well when I was a kid. So as we talk, I can multitask. I'm looking at the.
I know you can. You are such a talented individual.
Look at your. Tell me. Keep telling. I'm listening.
Yeah. So one of the things that they would test for is when your gaze breaks and maybe one eye keeps at it as it's coming toward your nose, as it, basically as your eyes are converging coming in. For me, as you brought a pencil toward my nose, it was like at 4 inches out. I stopped. And so then I would suppress. So two of the questions they ask of concussion people, are you sensitive to light? And are you seeing double? Well, I got my concussions in January and November in Seattle. There is no light. I mean, you can't see out here, but it's not a valid question to ask me.
You're not in the sunniest place in the world. That's true.
Not the sunniest place in the world, so not valid.
I like Seattle. I've been there. I
Yes,
love it.
yes,
It's
yes.
nothing against Seattle. There's pros and
Yeah.
cons, but yes,
This time of year, you want to get up to the mountains in the snow
Yeah.
or get to Mexico or California or Hawaii.
Yeah,
Direct
so-
flights, Alaska Airlines.
sensitive to
And-
light, not a great question. All right.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the other one was, are you seeing double? And again, that is not like if someone's seeing double and cognitively processing it, they'll tell you. Majority of people who actually are seeing double, where the two eyes won't resolve one image in your brain, what happens is you just start suppressing one of the images coming in from your eye. So your brain will just process one of the images. So maybe it favors your right eye or your left eye, but you then lose depth perception. You lose peripheral vision, and it's just as unknown. And your eye. So what happens with a concussion for many people, not everyone, everybody's concussion is different, but our vision pathways are tied into our neural pathways and just really enmeshed with different neural pathways within our brains. So you could say, is it 40% or 80% of our neural pathways? Debatable. For me, the layman, I can't tell you that, but I do know that I was having headaches that actually weren't headaches. They were muscle strain from my eyes trying to work together. And so I got
Gotcha.
a protocol to go do this, and I call it vision, physical therapy for my eyeballs. And I was able to, I don't get eye strain headaches anymore.
So this was not concussion related. This was eye strain.
100% concussion related.
But it was your eyes that were straining.
Exactly. Yeah. So it wasn't like when you think about a headache of, hitting your head on something and there's a bruise, just like if you bruised your arm, oh, it hurts where I got hit.
Right.
Or say like for me, I get tension headaches at the base of my skull back where that cervical spine injury occurred, right? So I can really feel the muscles tightening in and constricting, and even the plates on my skull constricting in, right? There's that type of headache. But when I would get this headache up here, because it's part of my skull, I'm thinking headache, but it was actually just specific muscle strain for my eyes really trying to work together.
Huh. That's really interesting.
Yep. And so with the vision therapy, I was able to get my eyes, the muscles working together again, because there's a neuron there sending the signal to that muscle to try to get it to work together. So did a variety of different exercises. I had some colored lenses for a while, and for different people, different colors help relieve strain. And
Really?
So for some people, it's blue. Blue worked for me. For other people, it's rose-colored glasses. And basically the way you test for that is you look at a sheet of paper with text and put different colored filters over it and just see if, do you feel more relief and is your vision improved?
Now, where did you do this vision therapy? What kind of doctor or what place would?
Yeah. So she's a board certified ophthalmologist, and she has a specialty in binocular vision therapy. I can look up, we can send it later, of what the ophthalmological certification is. But if you say, binocular vision therapy, and then one of the greatest resources I found was the Brain Injury Alliance Association of the state of Washington. And I think all of the states in the United States have a Brain Injury Alliance nonprofit that can give you referrals of local practitioners who do this kind of work.
Okay.
So in the Seattle area, I had one up north, one downtown, one down south. The further south of Seattle you get, there's some amazing practitioners because we have the Lewis McChord military base.
No, that's cool. We'll get that out there so we can look,
Yep.
because people, whether you're in New Jersey, Seattle,
Exactly.
Wyoming, or whatever it may be. So
Exactly. Yep. Great resources out there.
Yeah.
So,
and is this the Bates method? Are we talking about the Bates method? Am I jumping? I'm stealing your thunder a little bit. Is that what we're talking? This is the Bates method.
The Bates method, yeah. So in kind of the 1900s, there was this optician in New York, and he realized that you could actually do treatment with people, build up muscles for them as vision was deteriorating, and they might not need glasses, or they could delay getting glasses, or they wouldn't need as high of a prescription.
Right.
So we actually got whatever the equivalent would be of disbarred. The other opticians who were making money off of selling glasses kicked him out.
Which
The poor
which
guy.
which means it works.
Exactly.
Which means it works. Let's be honest. So you're on the whole HOL Truth podcast. We
Yep.
cut
Yep.
through the BS here.
Yeah.
If someone is threatened, if business is threatened, if it didn't work, if he was full of baloney,
Yeah.
then he's just full of baloney.
Exactly.
What's the
Yeah.
big deal? Leave him alone. So clearly, I think it was I looked it up because I had to
Yeah. Yeah.
because I need
Yeah.
to know what we're talking about. But in 1891, Dr. Bates clearly was onto something.
Yeah. Yeah.
To feel threatened, to be disbarred or whatever it may be, and
Exactly.
but it's worked for you. So this
Worked for
is
me.
what I love because
Yep.
it's
Yep.
not just conventional, big business. There's other ways of going about it,
Yeah.
and the Bates method is
It,
potentially an option, right?
absolutely. And there are things to do. So like say you live in a rural area, and I grew up on a farm, population 800 in my hometown in Idaho, and I was driving a half an hour, if not a couple hours, to get to medical professionals, right? So there are some things with vision therapy. If you think might be an issue for you, like you can go online to YouTube, and there are amazing things on there. There's a book out there by Leo Engart, and it's called Improve Your Eyesight Naturally. And he has a variety of exercises based on if you're nearsighted or farsighted or whatever might be going on. Obviously, you should always go see a trained ophthalmologist in this to get specific exercises for you, but there are things that you can do on your own at home to improve your eyesight depending on what's going on for you. So one thing that I would do, there was a string that had different colored beads on it, and you would say have the red bead, so it's a white string and have the red bead on there, and I would look at it and move it closer and farther. So in theory, you have two visions of that red bead coming into your eye.
Okay.
And so then if you're focusing, you have that red bead as one red dot, then the string between the bead and your eyes actually splits. So it's kind of like this magic trick of it looks like you now have two strings going into the red bead.
But
And
essentially, in layman's terms, what we're doing here is strengthening the eye muscles.
The eye muscles, and then getting, with neuroplasticity, you're also helping new neurons be able to connect then in and send the signal appropriately. So
Okay.
it's, you're physically working your eyes, and then also you're helping the connections in your brain to be able to process it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really
It's
interesting.
pretty
It's really
effortless.
cool.
Yep. So there's workshops out there, weekend workshops that you can go do. These people who travel around and help you improve your vision. I heard one doctor said it should be criminal to put eyeglasses on children, and I think that's maybe right. There's the extreme.
Right.
But one of the things too with vision therapy for some people, they can use it for ADD, they can use it for dyslexia. And so there are a lot of ways that vision therapy, not just for concussion, can be a really helpful tool. And of course, not covered by insurance. There are some providers who are occupational therapists, and some insurance companies will cover occupational therapy.
Which, again, I'm going to throw out my 2 cents.
Yeah.
And another reason why I'm doing this show, it's not covered
Yeah.
by insurance.
Yeah.
Oh, that means it works. Oh, sorry. Just saying. Sounds like that's something that might work.
Yeah. So I definitely had to adjust my, health spending account once I started looking what I was going to be spending out of pocket to just make sure that at least I was using pre-tax dollars. So you figure out the system and you try to work the system. And I was fortunate enough to have insurance coverage for some of it. And my doctor worked with me too on being able to bill the eye exam as medical, right? So there's just a variety of
isn't
things.
there things that you could do, like when you wake up in the morning, when you learn how to do some of these, like the Bates method? Like I just looked it up, right? So I looked up Bates method, and I know stretch and yawn, like something about like yawning. like helps
Yawning
your
and
eyes?
gargling.
Gargling?
Too. Yeah.
Did
Just
you do that? Did you yawn and gargle every morning?
Well, I yawned all the time because I was tired, so it wasn't actually part of my treatment.
It was
But
strengthening your eyes, though.
yeah. So things that I would do. So there's acupuncture points. So especially in this Leo Engart book. So cupping is one thing to relieve stress in your eyes. So getting your hands warm and then putting it over your eyes. But actually, the better way to do it, rubbing your hands and putting opposite hand over opposite eyes. So one of the things that you want to have happening is one side of your body having to talk to the other side of the body to really help with those connections in your brain.
Is this palming? Is this palming?
Palming, yeah, palming or cupping. Some people call it different things. Actually, cupping is another thing too with acupuncture that you can do. But this here just helps relieve some of the strain in the eye. So say if you're looking at your computer screen all day, and you're feeling eye strain, this is something to just help relieve some of that stress in your eye. So you want your hands warm. So rub your hands together, John, there. And then I say opposite hand, opposite eye. So the palm over your eye. Yep. And, just take some deep breaths and see, does it feel any better?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And
it's
you know what?
blocking out the light.
I do some of this, and I didn't even realize I do some of this just naturally.
Yeah.
Kind of being a nature guy, I typically like to go outside no matter where I am and just look at the sky and get light, even if it's cloudy or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I try to just get away from a screen.
Yeah.
It's very hard. You have to be on screens. There's phones, and we live in 2018, so it is what it is. But there's so many resources. I mean, it's called nature.
Yeah.
To
exactly.
me, just step outside, do these exercises, but give your eye. The whole idea is to give your eyes a break. And so I mean, I didn't know anything about palming. I didn't know about rubbing your hands and stuff. But
and there's different points too on your eyes, around your nose. You can do clockwise, counterclockwise circles underneath your eyes, by your temples.
The tapping.
That is another thing too that I did, but this is actually just pressure on your points. But it's a lot of the same pressure points with EFT with tapping that you would put pressure and relieve the pressure, or do circular clockwise, counterclockwise to just you want blood flow, energy flow around your eyes.
Yeah, it makes sense. So is this one of the main things that really, really helped you? Is this kind of like?
Absolutely. With the headaches and with the cognitive processing, I really feel like this made a big difference. And
all right, let's give you a little test.
Okay.
Let's see if you did this right. I want you to do nose drawing, and if you get this wrong, I'm gonna if you get this wrong, you're gonna have to do a headstand on top of the Space Needle while holding a mimosa.
Perfect.
For
Great.
1 minute.
For 1 minute.
So
Perfect. Great.
try your
Nice
best.
you.
Nose drawing. So there's something that's called nose drawing. Can you perform the nose drawing for me?
So the thing that I did was actually Tibetan wheel drawing. And so you're looking at a circle in the middle. So I have no idea what you're talking about with nose drawing, but with Tibetan wheel drawing.
So then that's a 1 minute headstand.
Okay.
You're wrong. We're not talking about Tibetan wheel drawing.
After that concussion, I no longer do headstands. I do my yoga completely differently.
I was going to give you a huge pillow to do the headstand on.
Yeah, it's not about the pillow; it's about your neck strain.
And
right?
there's no concrete around there. It's all wood chips.
Handstand, or there's no shoulder stand. There's no headstand in my yoga practice or any yoga class I teach anymore.
Okay, all right, fine. We're going to change it.
All right.
Okay, so you just got the nose drawing wrong. So you have to do a 10-minute sun salutation. How's that? Does that make you feel better?
Do that. Yeah.
All right.
Regularly do that. So
in the rain, outside on top of the space needle. So
remodel it.
The nose drawing, from what I understand, was like literally closing your eyes when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
And moving your nose. And I guess the whole idea is, again, to draw blood flow into that area to improve the muscle in the eyes.
So some of the exercise that I would do is I would have these flashcards that would go through, and it would have a picture of two grandfather clocks at varying distance apart, and I would hold it, a specific distance away, and I would have to make those look like one image, both by converging and diverging. And so it once you start doing this and knowing what converging is, so converging is that's when toward crossing your eyes and bringing your eyes together.
Okay.
And then diverging though is actually loosening it. And the diverging one was the area where I needed the most work, and just that loosening and letting go.
So exactly what were you doing? So I understand.
Yeah, so I would hold a card in front of me that had the pictures on it. So it's specific pictures from the at specific distances that from the vision therapist, and on it there's two pictures, and you have to bring those two pictures together in your cognitively imagining that this is only one picture. And the way that they test if you're doing converging and diverging is they have two concentric circles in the middle. And so when you're doing it one way, the middle circle looks like 3D toward you. When you're doing the other way, the middle circle is 3D away from you. And it's these kind of like Jedi mind tricks. And, so those are things that's really good to be walked through with one of the vision therapists so they can show you what right looks and feels like and help you work you through it.
So cool.
Those are some of the things that I would do. Yep.
No, it's just, I love this stuff. I think it's so neat. Like, that here you are. Unfortunately, you went through this. I mean, it's terrible. No one wants to ever hear that anyone's gotten concussions.
Yeah.
But you were able to, find this guy who teaches the Bates method. And it's this unusual alternative method that's not, your typical, hey, just go get glasses type thing.
Yep.
And it's worked.
It's worked.
For you.
Yep. It has. Yep. And so that has really helped with, I think, the cognitive processing, and then as well as with the headaches and the vision processing. Around this same time that I started going to vision therapy, I actually had a dip in my mood. And so I was tired and I was frustrated for several months there, but then I found myself pretty weepy. And I remember crying one day and laughing at myself because I'm like, this is the concussion and it's delayed. This was 6 months out from it. It was July, and I was like laughing, like I'm really sad, and this is like kind of ridiculous. So went into my primary care doctor, and
this was 6 months after the
concussion.
And you hadn't had, in those 6 months though, you didn't have any reactions until that time?
Well, I mean, I was having an appropriate, frustrated, tired, fatigued, not feeling great, but it wasn't like this other level of weepiness that felt just like, wow, I feel really crappy. And I've had, a bout of depression before, and it felt like going that way.
It's interesting that it took 6 months to manifest that like that.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes we've got these reserves of neurotransmitters or just depleted, right? I've got elevated levels of cortisol all this time, and finally your body is just like, all right, enough. So
you need to just move back to where you grew up in Idaho. You had everything right there. There's no screens. It's just wheat fields all over the damn place.
Yeah, but the wheat, right?
Yeah, but it's non-GMO wheat. All right, I know you. There's no way you guys are spraying. There's no way you're spraying there unless someone's gotten to you.
I get back there plenty. Heading there on Saturday to enjoy some skiing and stuff. But
it must make you feel. But you must feel better when you go back there.
Yeah, I mean, I get out a lot in Seattle too. So the city is an easy place to get out. So I think being near water, having it reflect up. You're getting extra light, getting out, breathing fresh air, going hiking. So a lot of those things. So about this time in that summer, I had a friend who was actually doing the same health coaching program that you did, John. And she was really focusing on the nutrition portion of it. And she had recommended this book called The Mood Cure. And so there's this woman, it's Julia Ross, and she's down in California. And what's great about her book is she takes you through this little quiz to look at what essential amino acids you might be missing. So those amino acids are the building blocks.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. So I ended up going through the book and seeing what supplements I might take to help where I was depleted. And that was really helpful for me. So I already had the anti-inflammatory nutrition, but then when I went through it, there were several things that came out that could be helpful to me.
When you say anti-inflammatory nutrition,
yeah,
your diet is clean. Is that what you mean?
Cleanish, right? So there's
not perfect.
Yeah. So my main triggers were dairy. So just I don't drink milk anymore. I have almond milk, and the gluten. So I have some
for you.
Yeah, for me, yeah. So what were the things that caused inflammation for me? But I didn't want, I'd been on antidepressants before. I didn't want to, I knew I could go there if I had to go there, and that's the place to go for plenty of people. But once I started reading this book, I realized that I might be able to get there. And so let me give this a try. And I didn't want to wait too long, right? Because if you let depression go too long, it's hard to dig out of. So I went through Julia's quiz and came out, and tryptophan was one of the things. So here my husband had been taking it to help him sleep and feel better. But then once he got off gluten, he didn't have to take it. So once I started taking that at night, and then I was taking magnesium, and that also can help with brain. So one thing I would say to people, if you go get a concussion, one of the things you want to do is get in an Epsom salt bath or go to a float tank. You want to get that magnesium in to help reduce the inflammation. So that's been something for me, taking Epsom salt baths.
Gotcha.
And then orally taking magnesium. I take magnesium glycinate because that's easier on my stomach. But those were a couple of things. And then making sure the right combination of calcium and and B complex and omega-3. So just really looking at those things that were going to be for brain health specifically. And, for different people, you're going to have different symptoms. So I say, go through Julia's quiz, and if you're experiencing emotional dip following concussion. So
what's the book again? One more time.
It's called The Mood Cure.
The Mood Cure.
Mood Cure. Yep.
Gotcha.
And she has a website too. You can go on there and answer the questions and see what might be right.
I'll have to check that out myself.
Yeah. Big fan of that. So that was a lot of what helped. I'm going through, so between taking the supplements, doing the vision therapy.
And the glutathione, right?
Yeah. And the what? Oh, yeah.
I'm stealing your thunder again.
I didn't discover that one until later. And so it was after, so one of the things with the one I had a year ago, and I wish I could pin down how I found out about this guy's book. So his name is Dan Engel, The Concussion Repair Manual.
You're reading a lot of books. I like it. This is part of your cognitive,
It is, bibliotherapy, man. If you go to doctors and they can't help you and they tell you it's a new normal, you don't necessarily have to accept that, right? There are options out there.
Well, you're a badass. Jenny Zenner doesn't accept the new normal, so I don't expect anything less from you.
Well, and one of the things too is here I am in Seattle. I am in a major metropolitan area with a University of Washington teaching hospital. We are right near Fort Lewis McChord, a military base. You would think that there were resources. So when I went to get a referral, so that when my mood dipped, I said, I want to work with a neurologist who specializes in brain injury and, maybe brain injury for women, because they found there's different ways that things manifest for women than for men. And so there's a couple of people in Seattle that specialize in that. And they said that they could get me in 6 months. They're booking out 6 months.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And this was already 6 months after my concussion. And here I am hearing stuff in the news about repeated head trauma and thinking I'm doomed. And so that was just really, really stressful. So I had to take care of it. I'd seen one other neurologist, and their solution was, we can give you a prescription for migraines. Let's just treat the symptoms. And I didn't want to treat the symptoms. I wanted to get better. And Aleve could take care of the pain, right? That I didn't need some other drug that would have other side effects for my headaches.
Right.
That wasn't what I was looking for. So I ended up getting some neuropsych testing, and that happened December. So almost a year, the first time I could get in, earliest time I could get in was a year after that concussion practically. And I found that to be an expensive day for my health insurance company, because by the end of the day, I'd met my deductible.
Wow.
And the time would have been better spent just asking my husband, what's different with your wife?
Right.
And they said, well, you're coming back normal range, within normal range, and all these things. I'm like, well, I didn't used to be normal range. And then I went to and then it wasn't for another 6 months before I was able to actually get into the neurologist on their calendar. It was just to me, just felt insane. I felt like, are we in I mean, no offense to Canada, but like, are we in Canada? Like, are we a waiting list? Like, I thought we had a care system here where you could see providers. So you might actually get better care in Canada. One of the, if you're in Toronto, there's this doctor there, Norman Doidge.
Do you have another book coming?
Oh God,
is there another book coming my way?
Yeah. Okay, The Brain That Changes Itself. So this gave me
Here
hope
we go.
about neurotransmitters. Yeah. So he's out of Toronto, and he just lists a lot of people who are doing some interesting things there with either stroke victims and people with brain lesions.
Yeah, but the people in Canada, their healthcare is, it's like, you don't want to read a book with. I mean, you said it, not me. I'm just, I'm not bashing Canada. You did. So just saying that.
I shouldn't. Like, I actually think you might be better off, and I, for at one point in time, I was thinking, I'm moving to Toronto, because he talked about this one thing called matrix repatterning, where they actually look at energy levels. So say if you get a trauma in one part of your body, there can actually be a secondary area of your body that's reacting and trying to compensate. And so they can actually take and this energy sensor around your body, check the electrical response that you're giving around your body, and it'll look at where things are tight. And I think some good massage therapists, energy body workers, this is what they do naturally. Or there's ways you can physically just look at someone at their body. Like you say, well, you've got a bruise over here, but you're really tight on the opposite side, to try to help compensate for that. I had a friend who, he blew his ACL in college playing basketball. And to compensate for that, he ended up with a hip injury on the opposite side of his body, right? Because he came back too early from the injury and was trying to compensate. So with matrix repatterning, they try to look at where the primary injury is and where the secondary injury is, and through manual, like massage therapy, energy work, that they can help alleviate both the primary and secondary area.
Yeah, it is interesting, because myself, I have a bad back, so I have damage in my back. I won't get into the specifics, but just wear and tear,
Yeah.
So there is physical damage. It's in my right side.
Yeah.
But I also have a shoulder injury, my rotator cuff. It's on my right side.
Yeah.
My leg sometimes bothers me. It's on my right side. When I have sciatica, it's on my right side.
Yeah.
So clearly, I can't explain exactly what's going on, but anytime I usually have an issue, it's actually usually on my right side.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And I think I don't know what the reason is for that, but there probably is some sort of imbalance there.
Yeah.
Which needs to be adjusted, but that's a
Exactly.
whole nother ball of wax.
Whole nother story. Yeah. So maybe you should go find a matrix repatterning practitioner to see if they can help uncover with you what's going on.
And what about the glutathione, though? Like getting back to the glutathione.
So about that, yeah. So it's an antioxidant, and a lot of people will use it with a nebulizer if you have chronic sinus infections or bronchitis or asthma. It smells like rotten eggs. It's awful.
But yours was a nasal spray?
Yeah, and so I ended up doing it as a nasal spray, because that's the closest way to get it through the bloodstream into your brain. So it's an antioxidant. You're trying to get in it, reduce the oxidative state in your brain, then is killing brain cells and causing this bad cycle in your brain. And so I was taking, in one of the things I'd read, glutathione looked to be a great thing. But if you take it orally, it gets broken down in your stomach. It's not going to make it to your brain. So at a minimum, doing it with a nebulizer. And then if not, then the better next step is going to a compounding pharmacy, getting my naturopath was the one who wrote the script for it, for a nasal spray. And
the cream,
and then
rubbing the cream on your liver. No, seriously. There's another option. There's the
Okay.
nasal spray, but there's
Right.
literally,
Yeah.
and we have it at home.
Okay.
You can rub the cream on your liver because your liver is responsible
Okay.
for detox.
Oh, got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's another option.
Yeah. So, and I think that would be like more generalized body. Like to me,
Right.
I also like the placebo effect of like feeling like I am injecting something right where the hurt is.
Right. Well, if it
So
works,
great to know that there's another way to apply it as well, because it can be really useful um, for all sorts of types of healing.
did you notice a difference? Like,
So with that, when I started doing it, so that I did after this one the last year, and I bounced back so well from the concussion I got just over a year ago because I had the stuff in place. One other thing that I'd added in through reading the, either Dr. Clark's book and then going through the Brain Injury Alliance, I actually went to one of their conferences. Neurofeedback was something that got brought up quite a bit. And it's brought up also in the concussion repair manual. And so I started doing that with my naturopath. And so getting hooked up to electrodes, and you take a pretest, and she could see this trauma brainwave. And then I would do this relaxing meditation with the system hooked up to me. There's soothing music that comes in through the earphones. And, to me, that felt like I was, doing good things in my brain to help calm it, relieve some of that stress response, and then create new pathways. So I was doing neurofeedback. I did that right away. After this last concussion, I went to my acupuncturist, did several treatments. She also did cupping. So the stuff that, I don't know if you remember Michael Phelps, when it looked like he had hickeys all over his body when he was
yeah.
swimming. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So she would put those all down my back to just try to extract toxins from my body. And so neurofeedback, acupuncture, cupping, and then I got in the Epsom salt bath. I haven't been to a float tank yet, but one other thing that I have done is a hyperbaric oxygen tank, and that is something too. My naturopath referred her to one of her colleagues who has a tank. And when I went to see that woman, she's like, "Oh yeah, my kid got a concussion last week. I brought her here that night and put her in the oxygen tank." So they have found that to be really useful for people who are, no matter what type of trauma, to be able to get in this pressurized oxygen tank to help the body heal.
And you're not getting this from your conventional doctors. This is kind of coming from.
Yeah. My naturopath has been great, and anytime I brought in a new resource, if she wasn't always using it, she would work with me to like, "Oh, hey, that sounds logical. Yeah, let's try this."
Yeah. And I'm not trying
No.
to divide East versus West, conventional versus alternative, because I don't believe that stuff works. That just becomes a big fight. It's like the vegan and eat more chicken. No, vegans stink, and I don't think that works. So I'm just trying to figure out what works for you. So sometimes it's conventional, sometimes it's alternative. Just making sure that I understand that, and my audience understands that this is a little outside of the norm, which to me is completely great. But outside of the norm has worked for you. You feel good. You look good. Do you get headaches anymore?
I occasionally get headaches. Sometimes if I get gluten, if I have stress, that's where it goes. So it used to be before, when I got stress, say in my 20s, it went to my stomach, right? I would get more ulcerative and, stomach acidy. But now when I get stress, it goes to my neck and my head. And so I book an appointment with Ginger, and she.
But you have the tools. But now you have the tools to take care of it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So you know.
Yep. And hydrate, and if I need to step away from the screen, and or if I need to do some more of my eye exercises, those types of things. And one of the other things too with fatigue, so one thing, I had made some gains with my vision therapy, but I was still tired. So I was thinking well, and I wasn't getting as many headaches, but I was still really tired. And I actually was able to, and one of the great things of some of the people I've worked with is they haven't had ego, and they've been happy to talk, to say, "Hey, maybe you should talk to this person, or maybe you should talk to this other person." And so there was this guy down near the military base, south of Seattle, and I called his office because I was just kind of frustrated about the fatigue. And said what was going, like, hey, I see Dr. Kinney. She's up here in Seattle, but I'm still really fatigued. At the meantime, Dr. Kinney had just heard this guy talk at a conference in Canada and was going to tell me the same thing when I went to her office the next week. But
Oh, wow.
in the meantime, I call this doctor and I'm talking with his office manager saying, hey, should I do an appointment? And she's like, well, like, it sounds like you're in good hands. She's like, he's just right here. Why don't you just talk to him?
That's
And,
cool.
so there's people out there who really want to help. So I got in the call with the doctor. He's like, what are you doing? You're doing this and that. He's like, well, are you doing vestibular therapy? I'm like, what's vestibular therapy? And he said, you need a brain at rest will stay at rest. And one that's been concussed will just want to shut down. He said, so you actually need to physically move your brain. And he said, so if you feel like in the middle of the day, your workout should probably be, go for a run, not be on the elliptical. You don't, because your head actually stays still when you're on a stationary bike or I love the Versa climber, so get out, go for a walk or go for a run, do some.
Oh, to actually have your head kind of moving.
Actually have your head moving.
Kind of
right?
have it.
And then he said, yeah. And if you can't get away, then he would give me this little ball thing. So, like a little stress ball.
Yeah.
Toss it back and forth, but you actually move your head and watch it go back and forth.
That's
so
interesting.
It's not about catching the ball. It's about like training like, oh, hey, go fetch, like
moving. Yeah.
Actual physical movement.
Like nothing crazy, but actually moving the head.
Yeah. Just moving the head, and it will help keep it from just trying to inertia shut down. So.
Yeah, I guess we're just made to move. We're made to move and made to struggle. And if the brain feels like it can relax, it will kind of relax and be comfortable and kind of just, it goes downhill. Isn't it interesting?
It really is. It really is. You got to use it or lose it. So.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let me tell you this one last thing, because this was a good point that you brought up about all of these things that you went through. You've figured it out, what works for you, and that's awesome. I love that. And hopefully that will help other people.
I hope.
It may not help everyone, but the options are there to look up Bates method, glutathione, the oxygen tank.
Yeah.
All these different, things that you did, that you applied that work. The vision therapy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But with doctors, you've also surrounded yourself with the doctors that you feel comfortable with. That's a big thing for me, because I feel like, when you go into the doctor's office, and this is not, I get on on my ramble with this. I don't have a problem with doctors. There's some incredible, beautiful doctors out there that I believe go to medical school to, have a good career, and they have good intentions behind all of it, and they want to help people, and I think they're very passionate. I think the system is a very, very, very tough system that they're in, and it's a very tough spot that they're in. They have to see a lot of patients, and insurance companies say, okay, quick, fast. Unfortunately, when you, in this world, everything's fast, right? So fast food gives you fast sickness.
Yeah.
Fast medicine, pills. If you want fast, you can get fast, but it's going to get you sick fast.
Yeah.
It's the struggle that keeps you healthy. The fast stuff doesn't work. We're all about fast, but you know what? If you don't slow down, it's not going to work. So my point with the doctors is it's stressful to go into a lot of offices. They're running late. You're stressed out being there. You're already behind the 8 ball because you're stressed out, I think. You get into the office, and it's the doctor that has the good bedside manner. It's the doctor, when you look into their eyes, they've done the Bates method and vision therapy because they care.
Yeah.
So if they care, and because the energy, you can sense someone's energy.
Yeah.
And that they care about Jenny Zenner and that you're there and you need help, and automatically, that energy connection is automatically going to make you feel better and want to get yourself better. But when you're with a doctor or in a situation where, he's or she's kind of like, got one foot out the door and they're thinking about something else and they're not really caring about you, people pick up on that.
Yeah.
You pick up on that and you're like, hey, man, I'm paying this amount of money. And it's the bedside manner. It's just a huge deal.
And the thing that I found the most of, all good intentions from the physicians that I saw, they just didn't have the information. And a lot of the problems with specialties and specialization in Western medicine, like, if it's not my specialty area, then I don't know about it. And I feel so blessed in Seattle here. We've got Bastyr, we've got this naturopathic.
Well, you do know what
institution.
podcast you're on, right? You do know what show
Yes,
this is.
exactly.
Can you say it, please?
The Whole Truth podcast with John Levine.
How about HOL?
HOL, holistic.
So there's no special piece or part. It's the whole.
It's
truth.
the whole. Yeah.
And there's a reason we came together, you and I.
I thank Trina for making the introduction back in the day. And it was, the introduction to you is, so I help people also trying to do startups. And I remember making the decision of coming up to New Jersey to work on a project with you. I knew in meeting you, the energy from you, that we could work well together, and that, decent human being, and that what you said was your word, and that we were going to have fun together. And so then the only other question was I risking my personal happiness moving to New Jersey? And I had a lovely time there.
Hey now.
You showed me and I did it, and I moved up there, and I got to see all that is amazing about New Jersey. And so it was a total gift to get the chance to work with you. And I don't know a lot of people who could have the business relationship that you and I had, of just mutual respect and wanting to try to do the same thing, and knowing that, what we wanted to do at the time, the timing wasn't going to be there. But I'm just so excited to see you doing this now and trying to help people in such a meaningful way.
Well, thank you for coming on. It was great catching up with you. Love your story. Bates method, glutathione, vision therapy, hyperbaric, oxygen tanks.
Yes.
It worked for Jenny Zenner. It may work for you. It cannot hurt to read these books and check it out. And so we're going to wrap it up.
Excellent.
I miss you.
Thanks,
let's catch up soon. And
Absolutely.
we will see you. Adios,
Thanks a lot. Take
amiga.
care.